Hello and welcome to another CHSG history revision video. This one focuses on paper 1 and how to tackle judgment questions. Remember, this type of question also appears on the Elizabeth section of paper 2 as well, and the same techniques apply. First up, let's look at the features of judgment questions. They always come in the same format. The examiner will give you a statement of opinion in inverted commas and ask, how far do you agree? You will be given 2 suggested topics or ideas to write about, but you don't have to write about those if you don't want to. You must have at least 1 point or topic of your own. Now we can say that a good answer will have the following features. A judgment. This means you need to come to a decision about whether you agree with the statement or not, and you must back this up with reasons. A line of argument. This means you should keep referring back to your decision throughout each stage of your answer. You also need a sense of debate. This means you need to show balance, considering both sides of the issue. There are some connective phrases you can use to do this, like on the other hand. What you do write must be backed up with precise, relevant knowledge. Analysis and evaluation is also required. This means explaining why things happen, why they matter, how important they are, and any limitations. So let's look at how to tackle the judgment question. On the left-hand side, you can see the method we're going to work through. On the right-hand side, you can see the example question which we're going to apply this to. Firstly, we need to find the opinion statement. This will be in inverted commas at the start of the question. We should read this a couple of times through in the exam, checking that we're absolutely sure we've understood it. Within the opinion statement, we will have a focus. This is what we are being asked to judge. Now in this case, we have to judge the most important reason why improvements in care and treatment in hospitals happened. Now often there is a time frame as well. Sometimes we're given this in the form of centuries, as is the case here. But at other times, they might refer to years or to periods like the medieval period or the Renaissance. You should make sure that you are absolutely clear about these different ways of referring to time periods. Now this question absolutely requires a plan before writing. Making a plan should not take very long. Here's one way of going about it. We need to think of 3 relevant topics. In this case, we're writing about hospital care in the 19th and 20th centuries. So I've thought of 3 topics which had an impact in this area: Florence Nightingale, the NHS, and germ theory. Now I need to rank them. I'm going to put them in order of how important they were for improving hospital care and treatment, because that was the focus of the question. In my opinion, the government setting up the NHS was the most important, so I've ranked this number 1, as it gave access to hospital care to everyone and also saved many lives. I'm ranking Nightingale second, as her work also saved a lot of lives, but it didn't increase access to hospital care, and actually it was the government who put her ideas on hospital design into practice. I'm ranking germ theory last. Again, this saved lives, but it did not increase access to hospital care. And although germ theory led to early antiseptics, some of these even made hospital treatment more difficult. As you can see, when I'm ranking my topics, I'm already starting to think about my reasons why. This means before I write, I have a very clear idea of what I'm going to say. Next, let's look at how to write up our answer. First, we need an introduction. This should be fairly brief, 3 sentences only. First, we address the question. This means quoting back the question to the examiner, showing that we've understood it. Then we introduce our 3 topics for the answer. Finally, we give our overall decision. Here we make it absolutely clear how far we agree with the statement. In this case, I mostly agree. Now we're ready for our main paragraphs. There should be 3 of these, 1 for each of our topics. Let's write the paragraph about Nightingale first. We'll start with a big point which addresses the question. I've gone for one point which partly disagrees. Now you could adapt that to mostly disagrees or mostly agrees if you like. Next, we give some knowledge about the topic. In this case, I'm presenting some detail about Nightingale's work on hospitals, such as her book on hospital design. Next, we begin to analyse and evaluate. This means explaining how important Nightingale's work was for improving care and treatment, compared to other reasons. As you can see, I'm going to begin with the positives, saying why her work was important. Notice that I'm giving my reasons why. In this case, I think her work saved lives. In the next part of my analysis and evaluation, I'm going to explain a limitation of Nightingale's work. Now, beginning this with the phrase, "despite this," helps to create a sense of debate in the paragraph, a bit like an argument between 2 sides. Finally, I end the paragraph with my overall judgment in this area. In this case, I mostly agree with the statement. Government action was more important than Nightingale's work. Let's try another paragraph, this time on the NHS. Once again, I begin with a big point which addresses the question. Next, I add some detailed knowledge about the NHS. Now I begin to analyse and evaluate. This means explaining how important government action was for improving care and treatment, compared to other reasons. As you can see, I'm going to start with the positives, saying why the introduction of the NHS was important. Notice I'm giving my reasons why. In this case, I think it both improved access and it also saved lives. It was also a turning point which led to a lasting change. In the next part of my analysis and evaluation, I'm going to explain a limitation of government action. Beginning this bit with the phrase "although" helps to create a sense of debate in the paragraph. The limitation I've given is that there weren't enough NHS hospitals in some parts of the country. But I don't think this is a very important limitation because the government solved it fairly quickly by building more hospitals in the 1960s. And I finish the paragraph with a judgment in this area. Now you could consolidate this technique by pausing the video here and writing a main paragraph of your own. Have a go at the germ theory paragraph using these sentence starters. At the end of the answer, you need a brief conclusion. This begins with a judgment. Overall, how far do you agree with the statement? Next, remind us what the best points are on the other side. Finally, explain your winning points. Think about these 3 steps of the conclusion a bit like winning an argument. You're really saying, I think this, other people might think that, but I'm right because. As you know, judgment questions also appear on the Elizabeth topic of paper 2. Before we leave, let's have a quick look at one of those. Now, the method here is the same. We start by locating the statement of opinion. Then we find the focus. What are we being asked to judge? In this case, we're being asked to judge what was the main cause of tension between Elizabeth and Mary. However, in this particular case, we don't have a time frame. As usual, we need to make a plan. In this case, I've picked 3 topics which cause tension between Elizabeth and Mary. One is Elizabeth's legitimacy, which is really about Mary's claim to the throne. The other 2 are alternative causes of tension which I've thought of. Once again, I'm going to rank them in order of what the main cause of tension was before I begin to write. Now, I actually think Mary's arrival in England was the biggest cause of tension, as this is when she became a focus for Catholic plots. Second, I think it's Elizabeth's legitimacy, as this made Elizabeth's enemies support Mary's claim to the throne. But there was a limitation here because not many English people wanted Mary on the throne because of her Scottish and French ties. I think the least important cause of tension was Mary's ties to France. I think that was less important because France was unlikely to invade England. It was too distracted by its own civil wars. Now we're going to jump the introduction and look at a main paragraph. Once again, we start with a big point, introducing our paragraph topic. Next, we'll add some specific knowledge about Elizabeth's legitimacy. Now I can start to analyse and evaluate. I'll start with the positives, explaining why this was an important cause of tension between Elizabeth and Mary. And next I'm going to explain a limitation to show that perhaps this was not the main cause of tension. Starting with the phrase despite helps to create a sense of debate in this paragraph. And I end my paragraph with a judgment in this area. Now, if you would like to practice this, you could write the next paragraph on the topic of Mary's arrival in England using these sentence starters. If you'd like to take this further, here are some more judgment questions which you could practice on. Thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And remember, there are plenty more technique and content videos there to help you.